Because electoral law varies from state to state, and counties and municipalities within those states have their own structures of governance, less common kinds of elections are possible and are used in some locales. For example, some states require a runoff election when no candidate receives the majority of the votes cast. In a runoff election, if no candidate receives more than 50% of the vote, several of the top getters, usually the top two, run in another subsequent election. Typically, the field of candidates is winnowed down until one candidate receives the requisite 50% plus one vote. Runoff elections often occur in nonpartisan municipal elections where candidates do not run on a party label. Owing to advances in technology, runoff elections can occur immediately in some states when needed. In an instant runoff election, a computerized voting machine simulates the elimination of last place vote getters. How does this system work? In an instant runoff, voters rank candidates in order of preference, first choice, second choice, and so on. If any candidate garners more than 50% of all the first choice votes, that candidate wins. But if no candidate gets a majority of the first choice votes, the candidate in last place is electronically eliminated. The voting machine computer then recalculates the ballots using the second choice vote for those voters who voted for the eliminated last place finisher. In effect, every voter gets to choose among the candidates remaining on the ballot. This process is repeated until a candidate who receives more than 50% of the votes emerges. Today's voting machines allow this process to take place instantly. Whereas primary elections and general elections select an individual to run for and serve in office, other kinds of elections are held for the purpose of deciding public policy questions. Although no national mechanism allows all Americans to vote for or against a given policy proposal, citizens can directly decide policy questions in their states by referendum or initiative. A referendum is an election in which voters in a state can vote for or against a measure proposed by the state legislature. Frequently, referenda concern matters such as the state bond issues, state constitutional amendments, and controversial pieces of legislation. An initiative, sometimes called an initiative petition, is a citizen-sponsored proposal that can result in a new or amended legislation or a state constitutional amendment. Initiatives differ from referenda in that they are typically propelled to public vote through the efforts of citizens and interest groups. The initiative process usually requires that 10% of the numbers of voters in the previous election in that state sign a petition agreeing that the proposition or proposed measure should be on the ballot. A third type of special election, the recall, differs from referenda and initiatives in that it is not concerned with policy-related issues. Rather, the recall election allows voters to cut an office holder's term of the office short. Recall elections are typically citizen-sponsored efforts that demonstrate serious dissatisfaction with a particular office holder. Concerned citizens circulate a petition, and after that, they gather the required number of signatures. An election is held to determine whether the official should be thrown out of office. For example, in 2012, Wisconsin voters succeeded in getting a recall vote to oust Republican Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker from office, but they failed in their efforts when 53% of voters voted to keep the conservative in office.